please download the notes document. And then use your Cami extension shortcut to open the Cami tab. Drag and drop the document. All right. You shouldn't be prompted to open anything that's already existing. It's going to take a while to load. I put in the images from the presentation. It still did some weird spacing stuff, but at least now it won't be interrupting your notes. It's a bit of a trade-off. Then we'll wait some more on slow internet. Thank you, Abby, putting your peer tutor skills to good use. But I do appreciate it. Yesterday we talked about how Globalization 1.0 and its imperialism influenced the colonies, and most of our time focused on some really horrendous negatives. Today we're going to start talking about how things were shaping the West, right, in Western states. And remember, when we say Western, what we mean is Europe and countries that were settled and run by Europeans. So outside of Europe, be the United States, Canada, Australia as examples. And one of the ways that this shapes the West and Western states is by increasing populations. And this is done through better supplies of food. So remember, the food supply, the food market is now global. Right? You get beef coming in from Uruguay. Also, right, Brits get a lot from Canada. Right? This advertisement, right, is saying how much beef Britain buys, and that Canada is not exporting anything like that amount, and it could be. Right? So they're saying we must speed up beef production to feed Britain. And the story is one that we've kind of seen before. Better nutrition leads to more successful pregnancies. Right? A woman is malnourished and becomes pregnant, is far less likely that she will be able to carry that baby to term. And then once those children are born, when there's plenty of food, they survive better. Right? Their mothers are better able to breastfeed them as infants, and then when they're able to feed themselves, they actually have food to eat. Right? As symbolized by images like this one from Germany of a market with all of these fruits, right, and things coming in from the rest of the world, because if you didn't know, bananas don't grow in Germany. Right? And the reason we kind of know this story is because we saw it before with the Columbian Exchange. The potato, right, for example, and corn providing better nutrition for Europeans. Same story here. And so populations really start exploding. We also see a reinforcement, and you could think of it in a lot of ways as an acceleration of the Industrial Revolution. And this is a result of global trade, global flows of investment money, right? Wherever there are good ideas, wherever there are opportunities, money will go. right, and feed those ideas and opportunities. And, of course, capitalists compete. Everybody wants to get rich and find the next new way to make money. Part of the story here is more access to raw materials. Part of that is a story of colonialism, but part of it is also just we've got better transportation technology that we've learned about to move things around. At the same time, and very much connected to access to raw materials, we also have access to markets. The U.S. might import agricultural commodities from, say, South America, but they're also selling farm equipment manufactured in the United States to South America. And, again, there's global investment, so there's more money to be invested to fuel new inventions. And this is a time period of tremendous new inventions. As a matter of fact, when economists and other people look back at this time period, they're kind of jealous. And they argue that we really haven't come up with anything since then that rivals what was invented there. That you might be thinking, well, what about the internet and smartphones? Sure. But remember, John Maynard Keynes is talking about how prior to 1914, somebody could get on their telephone and order stuff from around the world. Right? You being able to do that internet from a smartphone isn't that different. Do you think a smartphone changed your life as much as if you'd gone from having to go outside in the middle of the night, crawl into a small wooden shed, and go to the bathroom, right, and then go back inside? Or, and then the next, couple of years later, you're able to go to a room in your house, sit on a porcelain throne, do the same thing, wash your hands with hot running water, and then go back to bed? Which would change your life more? Right? Switching from ordering by talking into a phone or tapping on a screen, or having to go outside in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom in a cold wooden box, or being able to do that inside with hot and cold running water. What do you think? Noah, what's your vote? What's more revolutionary, indoor plumbing or the internet?
I'd probably say
indoor plumbing? Yeah, well, and I've set you up. I was definitely leading you to that answer. Right? But that's what people point out. I remember there was a cover recently on The Economist, which is a news magazine, and it showed the thinking man. Right? You've probably all seen the sculpture of the thinking man, and he's sitting on a toilet. Right? And the headline was, "Will we ever come up with anything this good again?" Right? So this is an era of a lot of new inventions. Not just new goods or new products, but also new manufacturing methods. This is part of what became a problem for those poor people in the Belgian Congo. Mr. Goodyear and Mr. Dunlop, right? You've seen their names on tires. They came up with ways of figuring out how to treat rubber so that you could use it for things like tires. Mr. Goodyear stumbled on a way of treating rubber with sulfur to make it much better. Right?
How did he do that?
Well, it's called vulcanized rubber, and it's on my boots that I'm wearing now, and for some of you, it may be on your shoe. Well, he was trying just the same way Edison talked about how he found, 1,000 different ways not to make a light bulb. He was trying to find lots of different ways to treat rubber, and he stumbled across that one. And then Dunlop helped figure out how to make practical pneumatic tires. And so it was bad for the Belgians, who were then sent off into the jungle to meet rubber quotas or have their wives and daughters mutilated or killed. But these same new manufacturing methods changed people's lives for the better in Europe and the West. And states came to see the productivity of their industrial economies as another source of glory in a lot of ways. It was a sign of their strength. Today, if you were to drive up to a city and you saw smokestacks belching black clouds into the sky, you would think, oh, what an environmental catastrophe. But if Gabe, right, is heading into London or Dresden in Germany and sees the same thing back in 1900, and that's a sign of progress. Right? That is strength. Right? Smokestacks are a sign of progress. And because states saw the productivity of their economies as a sign of strength, they really worked to grow stronger, right? To improve their industries. And then they showed them off. Right? This is an image from the Paris World's Fair, and of course, it's like a postcard-sized image, right? But they're showing that they can enclose all of this stuff in glass, right? And then all of these display cases would be showing what they thought were the wonders of the age. And what impressed them? Well, this is from another name for these World's Fairs was the International Exhibitions in Brussels, or in 1897 it was in Brussels, Belgium. And here's what they're bragging about. Here's what's going to be on display. I don't know that any of you guys would, if you had the choice between Worlds of Fun and a World's Fair, you'd pick the World's Fair. But for these people, all of these things were magnificent and exciting to see. Right? People would line up, travel from around the world, pay good money to see hygiene improvements, industrial and decorative arts, lighting. Right? When they say lightning, they mean electric lights. We were still trying to figure out what to call it. Right? Heating, ventilation, electricity. Right? We're talking basically about a home show in a lot of ways. Right? Now, Aiden, would you rather go to Worlds of Fun or a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning convention? Absolutely, right? But back then, right, the idea that you could have a box that might do stuff mechanically that cooled a room or cooled a box to keep your food from spoiling, it was basically magic. Right? So when they talk about traction, right, this would have been some of those rubber tires. Right? And people would think those were just, wow, it's amazing. Right? We don't have to make them out of wood anymore. Right? Manufacturing, sporting apparatus. This would have been another place where some of that rubber would have been on display in terms of new balls and footwear and all that stuff. Agricultural and horticultural competitions. Exciting stuff, right? I mean, guys, we're talking about like a state fair in the 21st century, but back then, right, this was a big deal. Right? And, as I said, states were really focused on how to make their economies better. Right? Come on, Jadra, Michaela, Vic, Ashley, come on down and get some practical teaching on industry and manual labor for women. Right? You'd rather, but back then, I mean, people were like, wow, women might do work and stuff. I mean, it was amazing. I totally understand your reaction today, but you really have to put yourselves in this time frame to get just how exciting all of these.
Yeah, that was sort of the norm back then. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was, and people just went nuts over this stuff, right? And that leads us to our third thing, and I know you're just like, he just wants to keep saying the same three things over again. Well, not really, but we do. Global trade, global investment, and capitalist competition also led Europeans in the years before 1914 to expect an ever-peaceful future. This little meme here involving Adam Smith, our invisible hand of the market guy, kind of makes the point, make money, not war. This was what's known as the Manchester theory. Not by a lot of people, but I like it. In your notes, I've associated with giving credit to the guy who coined the term, Geoffrey Blaney. And he called it the Manchester theory because it came out of Britain. Manchester is not maybe the city you think of when you think of Britain, unless you like soccer, in which case you might like Manchester United. But Manchester was a center of industry and trade in Britain in this time period. And the people here argued that as the world got richer and richer because of trade, right, that stuff that Adam Smith wanted us to do, we would become also better educated. Right? We would be able to afford to invest resources in making our people smarter, right? And to know more stuff. We would also thereby become more civilized. And as a result of finding that we could get rich through trade, and that being rich let us become better educated and more civilized, more refined, competition in the world and between countries, and between states, would become economic rather than military. And war would fade away. Now, I know we're going to very clearly find out that didn't work, right? And again, we've always got these kind of competing things, kind of like we've got mercantilism and Adam Smith's free trade ideas competing at the same time, and countries like Britain kind of following both paths at the same time. Yeah, fade away is not even close, right? And there's a reason that this period ends in 1914, right? And here's the but, right? And as my English teacher at Spring Garden back in the 90s used to say, but, and it's a big but, and we've all seen our fair share of those. He was a very skinny, scrawny little man from Brooklyn, and he liked to say things like that every day whenever he got the chance. Right? So here's the big but. Economic competition also helped to drive competition in imperial terms and in national rivalries, right? Rivalries between Britain and Germany, for example. Now, glory is also part of this, right? Of our three G's, glory may seem like kind of the poor country cousin, but it is very important. And it's very important for Germany. Right? Germany, you have to understand, right? I would say remember, but nobody may have told you this before, there was no Germany before 1871. There were parts, there were lots of places with German-speaking people, but as you can see in this map, right, and what this map shows is unified Germany in 1871 and all of its pieces. There had been little tiny, they were called principalities a lot of times, little tiny things like this. But the Prussians helped put it all together. Right? And Germany in 1871 is bigger than Germany today. Right? Stuff over here is now Poland, for example. But upon being united, Germany very quickly got its unified act together and became a military and economic juggernaut. And it still is an economic juggernaut. Germany is the most powerful European economy, easily. Even if you're wondering, well, are you just not counting Britain because they're an island? No, including Britain, Germany's still bigger. The problem for Germany, though, is the fact that they hadn't gotten unified until 1871 meant that they were late to the empire game. Right? And they wanted what they called their place in the sun. And place in the sun referred mostly to colonies in Africa. Because most of Africa is tropical, and even the not most of it is tropical. Lots of it is tropical, and even the parts that aren't tropical tend to be pretty sunny. And that competition, in turn, had several specific consequences. One, we've kind of already talked about a bit, was the scramble for Africa. And all of that colonizing that was really the subject of so much horrible stuff yesterday. Also, carving up China into what were called spheres of influence. That's symbolized by that cutting of what looks like a pie. Actually, it looks more like a pizza. By the European powers. And this was despite that open door policy that we've talked about, where the U.S. And to a lesser extent Britain and Japan wanted to keep China open to everybody. Okay. And as we're going to see, this still affects China's foreign policy and the way it views the rest of the world today. It also caused the Europeans, it contributed to the Europeans getting into military arms races with one another. Probably, for me, the starkest example of this is the Brits and the Germans getting in this Navy build-up frenzy. I mean, they really were they were churning out ships and inventing new types of battleships so fast that as soon as some of them started going into service, they were made obsolete by bigger and better battleships. They just poured tons of money into this.
So they were building ships so fast they didn't even get to use them.
Well, right. I mean, they became, yes. And also very much related to this, they start forming military alliances in opposition to one another. Now, we will spend some more time with these next week, but in terms of the notes, we're going to introduce them pretty abbreviated and condensed form. And our final slide, if you were wondering, yes, I know we're almost out of time. There is obviously no exit slip. Right, our fifth consequence here is World War I. Now, World War I, I'm not boiling all of this down to imperial competition. Marxists would. Marx, Lenin, they would have said exactly this is what this is about. But Globalization 1.0 is part of this. Right? And they also helped to make something that started as a small war between Austria and Serbia a world war because of all of these connections, especially in terms of colonies overseas. All right, that will be the end of these notes and the end of our class today. Make sure you upload those before you go.